All right, I'm starting to see participants come in. Welcome everyone to today's webinar session. My name is June Barasa. I am a program manager at Kala and I'm going to be your moderator today. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We have a very interesting panel discussion set for today. The title is around innovating during the time of COVID, and we have amazing, brilliant women who have worked in the COVID space. Not COVID space, sorry, excuse me, have been innovating during the time of COVID and have worked in the product team. And they're here to share with us their experiences and, show us what innovation has looked like for them during this period and what it will probably look like for the future and how to prepare us for that as well. So I welcome so much panelists and welcome so much audience. I'll go ahead and do a round of introductions, and I'll start with you, Kagonya. Karibu.
Asante sana, June. Welcome everyone to this very interesting panel. My name is Kagonya Wari. I am a senior manager at Safaricom and I lead user experience and design. My day-to-day involves, working with teams and having a big picture where we can actually create technologies ourselves that solve African problems. Happy to hear from you guys and enjoy the session.
Thank you so much, Kagonya. I'll move over to you, Carol. You can share with us, introduce yourself and share with us what you do.
Okay, thanks, Jen. Hi guys, my name is Carol Mweberi. I'm the product marketing lead at a company called Lift Global FinTech. And what we're building at the moment is we are building a money transfer platform that enables people to send, receive, exchange currencies across border. So my day-to-day activity is around working with the sales team, working with the engineering department, working with the product marketer, and also working with the guys in the who develop the product, and also align things with the service designer. So to ensure that the product we're building is really what the customers want in the market.
Thank you so much, Carol. Over to you, Maureen. Kindly introduce yourself.
Thanks so much. Lovely to be here. My name is Maureen Masharia. I am the CEO of Spindle Design, which is a design and innovation firm which works across the African continent. My day-to-day is essentially the KYM. I change the bulbs, I sweep the floors, and install products and services on teams. So my job is to make sure our teams are running efficiently, our products are being built as they should be, and overall setting and executing the strategic vision for us as a company. So happy to be on this and to learn from all of you.
Junior, on mute.
Oh, sorry, thank you. Over to you, Roina. Please tell us a bit about yourself.
Hi everyone, my name is Raina. I am the product manager for the Microsoft Graph SDKs. I work with the ABC team here in Kenya, and my day-to-day is pretty much interfacing mainly with developers and internal stakeholders to make sure that we deliver a consistent developer experience on our SDKs.
Awesome, thank you. And finally, we have Wangeshi. Wangeshi, kindly introduce yourself.
Thanks, John. I'm Wangeshi, a growth manager at Sendy, and my role involves leading product development as well as making sure that cross-functional teams are driving towards the same goal. So working with operations and marketing and sales to make sure that our product is really aligned to make an impact in the market and to drive revenue up.
Amazing. As you can all see, our panelists here have amazing experience and enjoy working in product teams. So we'll get to learn more about them today. And I'll start off with you, Carol. Maybe you can share with us what you have been building during this period. Like, what has your focus been on? What digital product have you been pushing?
So the digital product we're building is called Leaf Wallet. So it's essentially an application that enables people to transport assets. So when I talk about assets, I mean money. And our initial target market were refugees, because you know how they're normally troubled when war breaks out. So our platform enables them to move money from one location to the other. But then we discovered a new market segment, which is the cross-border traders. So that's the new kind of guys we want to start marketing to at the moment. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Maybe you can also share the link to, if it's live, you can share the link on the chat and people can be able to see the product that you've been working on and contributing to.
Okay, let me do that.
Maureen, how about you? What product have you been focusing on at the moment during this period?
Yeah, sure. I mean, in terms of digital products, as an innovation lab, we have a couple of things that we tinker with. One is an SME financing platform, which has been going for the last couple of months. Essentially, we know that in our ecosystem, the funding gap, the capital gap for small and medium-sized enterprises is massive. And then that skews even more when we come to talking about women and their financial inclusion and their economic inclusion. So we want to bridge that gap and close that and have a platform that we've been working on, and it's just about in testing now, closed testing. We also have a platform we've been working on with a couple of folks to really rethink what it means to help drive or to help with mental health, and ensuring that guys actually have the right assets, the right resources, the right connections, especially in this time of COVID, in order to maintain their mental health and to facilitate that process. And the last is a digital platform to help young people gain access to opportunity to work online in the gig economy. All of these are coming shortly to the broader public.
Nice. And have you been working on all of these products simultaneously? What has been your role in all of these 3 products that you're working on?
Yeah, I feel like sometimes when you're KYM, you do everything. But we have been working on some of these for longer. Like for the SME platform, that has been going for, I think, for about a year now. So it is a little bit older than the others that are newer and are at different stages of maturity. And my role oftentimes is to, one, set the strategic direction, and just to make sure that the vision for the product is aligned to what we know is on the ground. So we're not deploying solutions that don't have an actual problem, but that we are understanding the market, understanding our users, and then responding to that with our digital products. So that's mainly where I sit. And sometimes teams will call me in, to ensure that the developers are talking to designers are talking to the data people don't want to share data with the business analysts, and just to make sure that those interconnections between cross-functional teams are actually running as they should be.
Yeah. Nice. Someone in the chat was asking what KYM is, and Kagona said it's Kazi ya Mkono. So you're like basically startup mode, like that's where you are working on every single piece. A jack of all trades, I believe. Nice. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Maureen. I'll move over to you, Kagonya. Share with us what product you've been focusing on during this period and what your role has been.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, it's Safaricom. So I think all of us know Safaricom as a telco, but really Safaricom's vision, which is now a reality, is that we're moving from a telco to being a tech company. And not just any tech company, a customer-obsessed, digital-first tech company. So really, our foray of products has, increased. We're not only thinking about how you send money, only about how you send money, or only about how you make a phone call, or only about how you connect to the internet. Of course, these are our core and our priority areas. we're now delving into more. I cannot really talk about the specificities of the specifics of the projects that I'm working on, because many of them are actually quite, we've not made them public yet. But what I can say is that we're really taking note of the fact that the Safaricom customer has grown. Yeah, the Safaricom customer has another line. I'm sure all of you here have a Telkom or an Airtel line. Don't worry, I'm still your friends. Yes, so we're aware of these new behaviors, these new, even especially during COVID, right? These new requirements, and we're attending to those in various ways. So all I can say, like Maureen, watch this space. Products are coming out, and we hope that they will be liked, because now we're taking more attention and we're trying to listen to the customer, and not only that, but really understand the customer. So that's why my role becomes interesting. So my role specifically is to contribute to these different projects, from user research, which is different from market research, then to thinking around what the product should be, the wireframing, creating the concept, then up to designing and testing them. And so that's what my role entails, supporting all these different projects as Safaricom transitions into a tech company.
Nice. And how do you define a tech company, right? Because I think a lot of people would think just because you're working with, wireless networks and, Google Sheets, maybe that makes your tech company. What defines a tech company?
That's a very good and very tough question. Tough because it can be defined theoretically, and also you could say it can be defined on many planes. So yes, there can be a company that's supported by technologies, right? Right now the use of computer technologies is more, it's a norm. It's no longer something unique. It is something that it's ubiquitous. So that doesn't mean that we're all tech companies, but we're all using computer technology to ensure that our work is done more efficiently. So I would say a tech company, in the simplest way, is a company that builds solutions to people's problems using computer technology, right? So at the end of the day, your customers are using a computer technology to solve a problem that they have. So that, to me, is my definition of a tech company. And so that's, as we're moving into a tech company, we have to be aware of those. What are those problems? Who are our customers and who are they evolving to be? And then what is the best technology to solve it? Just because blockchain is hot doesn't mean that blockchain will work for Kenya. So we really have to fit that. And then maybe that technologies that we don't know can work for us. So then what do we do about it? Then what partnerships do we need to make in order to achieve that? So in simplest form, it's a company that uses computer technology to solve people's problems.
Nice, I like that. Thank you so much, Kagona. As our panelists are speaking, I'd like to ask the audience to share their questions if they have any. If you'd like more insight on what they're talking about, please share that, and I'll be able to pick that up and make sure that we answer all your questions. Over to you, Wangeshi. What has been your focus during this COVID period?
Thanks, June. So Sandy has traditionally been a tech logistics company. And over the last couple of months, actually a year, we've been asking ourselves, how do we make sure that we remain relevant 10, 100 years from today? And this led to us doing a lot of research and introducing Sandy marketplaces. Some of you might have seen Sandy Go, which is a marketplace for end consumers to be able to do their grocery shopping on the Sandy app. So we're not only now delivering delivery or logistic services, we're also offering trade. We also have Kyoto, which is our B2B marketplace, and is basically just enabling businesses to not only do their deliveries, but also trade on our platform. One other thing that we've really, and both of these products were actually released during COVID, and it's sad to say that that we introduced new products and COVID enabled new products to be developed. Then one of the things that we've also done during this COVID season is to double down on our small and medium-sized businesses. We've seen the growth of Instagram and Facebook businesses and the need for all businesses to move digital. And so what we've been really working hard to do is adjusting our pricing, adjusting our offering to the small and medium-sized businesses so that we can empower them to be able to deliver their goods everywhere. Those are the key highlights. There's so many other products that Sandy has introduced and features that I've worked on during this period, but I would say those are the main highlights.
Yeah, it's interesting how you're talking about how COVID has really pushed like innovation, and we were looking at data the other day, and we saw that what took e-commerce probably 8 years to build happened during COVID in 2 weeks, right? So it's basically pushed innovation to happen quicker, faster, more rapidly. And it's at Kala we have this thing where we say mostly in our pitch decks where we have this who pushes innovation? Is it the CEO? Is it the CTO? Is it COO? But then we also have COVID, which is part of the C-suite now. So it's kind of like forcing people to innovate. But it's interesting how this has really pushed the way we think about products. How we deliver value to people, how we make people's lives easier. So necessity is definitely the mother of innovation, and here we are. Roina, over to you. Please tell us, what has your focus been over the time of COVID?
Well, I think I've had a very unique experience during this COVID period because I was able to transition roles. Previously, I was at Sandy, and we were primarily my role was primarily interfacing with core infrastructure, everything from payments to all the processes that go into all the tech that goes into the day-to-day stuff like dispatching and order management and all that. So midway within the pandemic, I had the unique experience to be onboarded remotely to a very, very distributed team. So it's been 2 months at Microsoft, and there's been its own challenges. One, building those people connections, which are so crucial and vital to your role, remotely has been a whole different experience. And also just transitioning from a very tight-knit group of people into a new engineering structure, into a new organizational structure, into a much bigger ship, and finding what your place according to the organizational goals look like has been a little bit challenging. But it's been great challenges because a lot of it has had to be reevaluating what the role of a product manager is within the development cycle, as a people manager, and also as somebody who has the big picture goal of where the product is going. So because I transitioned in the middle, before moving to Microsoft, I was working a lot on payments and payments providers at that time. And so there was a lot of insight there in how organizations need to adopt beyond the processes that they've built to navigate an office setting. So in dealing with these big ships with the PSPs, you'd notice that there's like a lot of moving parts that are like, they end up revealing themselves as bureaucracy because they are actually hindering the customer's end goal and how to get to that end goal as fast as possible. So it was a very insightful process for me, dealing with multiple PSPs across different borders, providers who deal with just East Africa, providers that deal with payments across Africa, seeing the challenges of a scaling startup trying to scale to regions that, or on a payments level, to regions that they haven't explored before, the policies that go into payments. That was a very, very interesting insights there. On the Microsoft side, I think working with such a distributed team, I work with a team that's in 7 different time zones across all the continents. It's been a whole different level of people management, to be honest. I mean, like having to organize your time to be able to make those connections and provide value across all these regions, because your engineers are across this time zones, your manager is in a different time zone, you're in a whole different time zone, and being able to be a point of reference for all these people at any point and provide your value as a product manager has also had its fair share of insights and its whole, like a fair share of hacks on how to manage both your personal time, meeting time, and actual focus time. Yeah, so that's what I've been up to.
Interesting how you brought up the whole distributed teams and people are in different, time zones. What has it been like leading a remote product team, for example, and how do you provide that support and that motivation for people to deliver their products? Because I think in this time you kind of see people have had to change and adapt to different ways of working. For some, it's very new. For some, it requires a lot of like discipline, but how do you lead, how do you provide that motivation and support for your team?
Well, it's been really interesting. And I think coming from a predominantly startup background, you would think that your role as a product manager in, managing that specific team in a way that would be valuable and impactful would lie primarily on you because you're the team lead, right? But my perspective has shifted into actually realizing that a big chunk of it is your organization's ability to adapt to the situation and your organization's ability to adapt at this scale. When I joined 2 months ago, we were only 12 people in the team. We have since then hired 15 other different people in different countries from Brazil to Tokyo. And so there's a level of rigidity that top management cannot afford to have because it directly impacts how we're able to deliver value within our own individual roles. So I think within my organization, I'm lucky enough to at least have teams that have had this kind of scale before, and also realize that the biggest point of impact and the biggest point of evolution happens on the top level management level, and the ability to be able to shift and mold the organizational structure in a way that will accommodate the dynamics of each and every individual distributed team. On an engineering level, it might be easy because there's a lot of collaboration and documentation that can allow that collaboration to happen. On a
Yeah.
people level, we have to think a little bit more deliberately about what the actual interhuman connection, what the value of those interhuman connections are, and how to be able to enable that across distributed teams. So we do have teams internally that are building tooling, that are thinking critically about those human connections and how to provide those for teams that are highly distributed. And I think it's also the leadership's ability to be able to get insight from the people on the ground and be able to adopt the organizational structure and their management protocols and their management styles to fit those changing dynamics.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's very insightful. Thank you so much, Reina. I think over to you, Carol. How has it been like for you, this products to the people who need to use it in remote time?
So what we've been focusing on at the moment, since you're targeting like a new market segment, has been doing a value proposition testing. So that
Yeah.
entails me working closely with the customer care guys, working with the sales team and market research people to ensure that we are able to align a value proposition to what these segments
Hello.
Hello.
Okay, I think I did hear that. Thanks, Carol. I'm going to open up the floor to any questions from the audience. If we have any questions to come in based on what has been said. I saw a question earlier. I think this is directed to you, Kagonya. Christine Namara asked, do you think Safaricom has done a good job of losing what I call the monopoly mindset and actually embracing delivering value to individual consumers? And how does this play out in terms of competition with the rest of the industry? Is the giant evolving good or bad for the ecosystem?
Tough questions. So yes, I think first as a Safaricom employee, I'll start with an apology because it's true. Safaricom has had this monopoly. You could say, this we have had as employees even. Maybe I can't speak for the company, but I guess previously we assumed that we with this giant that cannot be beaten. But I think, and Rina mentioned it, you have to evolve, right? You cannot, the top level knows that we have to evolve. And so they have been deliberate about transforming how our culture, or improving it. Not that our culture was off, but simply improving our culture because it's changing times. So the monopoly mindset, I think, it's something that we are very deliberate about moving away from. I believe this is an action that is not new. It's an agenda that has been, at least the whole time that I've been at Safaricom, it's been an active agenda. I think maybe the outside world or cannot marry how we cannot be a monopoly, yet we are quite a strong company in the market, but we are deliberately evolving from it. And this is a direction from the top, right from our CEO, and it's very, very clear around how we need to think. So, and we've shown this in different ways. I know for sure, I guess you'll tell us more about this. We have worked with companies like Sandy, really to try and support the wider ecosystem. But I think on a more tangible level, it's now the second part of the question was, is the evolution of Safaricom good or bad for the ecosystem? There's a saying that says, what is it, a big wave, something about a wave and how it helps other ships, right? So I would say that the answer is yes. As we evolve, we set the tones and the standards that the market can then embrace, and then the whole ecosystem evolves. One example I'll give is how we've taken very seriously data privacy, right? This is something we've taken very, very seriously. As GDPR was happening, Safaricom was now implementing our own quote unquote version of GDPR. So we maintain these global standards, ensure that we begin them here, and our friends of Safaricom, our partners, and the ecosystem that we work with or we influence, then again has to take this seriously. So from where I'm sitting, I think it is a good move. And iron sharpens iron, right? Another thing I would say personally, I know we're quite aware, at least in my role, I'm very aware that my competitor here could be Spindle Design, right? So I don't sit tight thinking that, oh, we are so great, my team is so great. No, I know very well that my competitor could be Spindle, my competitor could be Leaf Global. So we're very, very aware of this. And this is what will then keep us humble. I know you think Safaricom is not humble, but it does keep us humble. So I think what we need to communicate more to the public is that we don't walk around thinking we're on a monopoly. We're very aware that our customers are using 2 other SIMs. We're looking at what they're doing in their behavior. We're very aware of what our customers are doing. And we even have, like say we're growing for example, our big data team. I know there's a question there around individuality, right? Are we building just for the mass or the individual? So we are then strengthening some of these very new skill sets or roles so that then we can understand you as the customer of one, and then we design for you. So that's really where we're going. Yeah.
Thank you. I hope that answers your question, Kristen. I'm going to ask you, Wangeshi, working at Sandy, especially during this time, we've seen a lot of companies like Glovo and Jumia and all these e-commerce platforms, or even what is it called? Delivery logistics platforms have turned into e-commerce to be able to just like deliver value to their customers, right? But how do you make sure that you're still, with all of this happening, e-commerce is really coming up, we're seeing a lot of platforms coming up every single day, but how do you still make sure that you're able to maintain keep the customers focus and still be able to deliver quality and value to them when they have so many other options as well? How do you help people, especially building a platform? How do you turn that focus from back to Sandy? How do you bring that focus back to Sandy when there's so many options for them?
Really great question. 2 things. One, Sandy is very, very data driven. We obsess over what our customers are doing, and we obsess over what is happening in the market and what those trends are. And we believe strongly in, if you build an extremely good service for the customer, Doesn't matter what the competition is doing, you just focus on your customer and build really, really well for them, understand them really well, understand their problems, and solve for those problems. Yeah. So our focus has always been the customer and will always be the customer. And we will keep innovating around the customer, not so much around the competition. Yeah. But if we look at competition, so as I mentioned, Sandy was traditionally or has traditionally been a logistics company. And now we are saying we have the infrastructure to deliver goods. So we don't want to just deliver, we also want to create these marketplaces. And we're thinking about our drivers. How do we make sure that we're giving them fuel, that we're giving them insurance services, what we're calling the auxiliary services? How do we make sure we are adding so much value to everyone within our ecosystem that everyone is benefiting greatly? If you look at Sandy's play, we are our competitors are also our customers in many ways. So we do deliveries for Jumia, for instance. We do deliveries for Twiga, for instance. So our approach has and will always be, we'll focus on the customer, we'll offer superior value. And as the market and ecosystem evolves, we will continue evolving with it. And hopefully that helps us to stay afloat for 100 years.
Nice. Cool. Maureen, I have a question for you, especially being KYM. How are you maintaining, let me ask it as it is, sanity? Because you're working on everything at this moment. How do you manage to get inspiration to, first of all, wake up every day and be like, by the way, I'm going to do all this work that I said I'll do, but still provide that motivation and support from my team to know that this is the standard?
I think implicit in that question is the assumption that I am maintaining sanity. Let's go with that. Let's assume that to be true. I think one of the things that has helped me, actually a couple of things I can think of for top of mind that has really helped me perform my role strategically in terms of leading the organization, and then tactically in terms of leading teams, is ensuring that we're setting them up the right way. We asked earlier in terms of how you motivate folks to show up. And to be honest, on my team, I rarely perform that function. I tend to see that our team understands what the vision is. So then my role is to recast that vision, recast the strategy, and then give them the leeway and the room to come up with creative, tactical ways of executing against that strategy. So, and then there's things like on any particular team, we have things like a social contract, so to speak, which means making some kind of agreement or work agreement which sets the expectations for how we work with each other and ensures that team members are committed not just to the specific task that they're doing, but to one another, right? Because as human beings, and one of the reasons we have missed going back to the office and all of that stuff is because of the interpersonal relationships. That being able to go and sit next to Kagonya and go like, okay, I need help with this, that, the other. So ensuring that from the onset, the team is set up to be able to commit to each other really helps me perform a completely different function, because they have a bond through that kind of, like social construct. So at the beginning of as COVID-19 hit, we went through like a team canvas, outlining what our goals for the organization are, reiterating those, underscoring our values, defining the different roles and skill sets, and then small things like rules and activities. For example, when we come to this Zoom call, we have a code of conduct, so to speak. It's the same thing for any given team, right? You have to be able to define, how do we work together? If you're offline, how do I reach you? Another thing that has helped is allowing for asynchronous work. Typically, you would be seated at a desk next to someone and be able to say, oh, I'm done, can you pick this up? But what happens when we are all in our individual homes and your work environment is not as conducive as mine? what happens when the infrastructure that you have is not as amazing as another person's on the team? We have to be able to build in structures and expand the space for collaboration by one, having those conversations, and then thinking creatively as managers, as team leaders, about how we allow for something like asynchronous work. So you know that once one particular task is done, it's not happening in series anymore, and you're able to then allow room for people to maintain their mental health and allow them to be, to be productive. And then the other thing is just tools. We can't underscore the value of the tools that we use and ensuring that everybody is up to date with them. Small things like Slack. It was amazing to see, even for our team that is very techy, having to figure out Zoom and meeting rooms and breakouts at the beginning of COVID, but outlining what and leaning on those tools in the right way matters. So like Slack, we chat. Miro helps us with diagramming. If we need to jump on something collaborative, we use Miro. If you need to work as a dev designer team, we go to Figma. And all of those different structures at a very tactical level enable the team to function, help me to continue doing my role, and contribute to the assumption of sanity.
And I'm sorry.
I'd like to add something on that, June.
Yes.
I think Maureen has done a very amazing job of listing all those categories, but I just want to highlight how it is important to also to create a psychologically safe environment, because we know how things are at the moment. So if you create that environment where your teammates can feel they can reach out to you and tell you, you are supposed to deliver this, but because of like something happened, so I wasn't able to deliver. So if you just create that safe environment, it also promotes productivity in the team.
Nice.
Yeah.
I guess I'll open the floor up to the panelists. I'm sure you've had different things from the other panelists here. And do you have any questions based on what they've said? Would you like to challenge something they've said as well?
Just to thank Maureen for the phrase was a rising tide lifts all boats. And so as we grow as a Safaricom, we have every intention to lift all the boats with us.
Yeah, mine is a question that's directed at the panel, but I think it came up as Wangeshi was talking, and I think it would be useful for the rest of the folks on the call to be able to hear, because Wangeshi, you talked about this transition that companies are going through and being able to see those trend lines, whether they're up and to the right or down and to the left and etc. And then tap into that and structure a team around it. So maybe you can speak to what has worked for you and how teams can navigate some of those transitions from both a product perspective, but also because you serve in a cross-functional role. And I know a couple of folks on the audience here are coming from the different functions on a product team.
Thanks. I think that's a really interesting question. First thing I would say is change is a mindset that everyone has to be comfortable with, is the first thing. A lot of people are, I mean, not a lot, but some people tend to be very change averse. But Sandy is the kind of company that is very willing to change. Any day, every month, we overhaul entire business units because data has said otherwise. And I think part of how to do this is embracing the fact that things are not personal. Market changes, it's not personal. As a developer, if I built something and I have a lot of attachment to this thing that I built, but the market says otherwise, I should be happy that the market is telling me and just take it as a learning and renovate and build elsewhere and build else how. And I think the attitude that change is inevitable is the primary way to go about navigating these market trends. We don't have the fear of changing or adapting to suit the market better. I would say that's the one thing that I really appreciate about Sendy's leadership, is that, they're very open to, this is what the employees are saying, this is what is happening within the company, and being able to say, okay, something needs to change. And tomorrow, starting that change, building up a team. If it's culture, for instance, building up a team and starting to implement things very rapidly, responding, as opposed to, inertia of responding to things because we've been so used to doing things a certain type of way. So
Yeah,
change mindset.
I really like and appreciate that. We often tell our clients that culture eats strategy for breakfast, innovation for lunch, and digital transformation for dinner. Like if your culture is off, by there's nothing we're solving here. I can give you all of the different digital tools, but we'll be right back here with a new budget in 2021, solving the exact same problems for the same mindset. Yeah, so I appreciate that comment, and it's true not only for leadership, but also for us in our different functions, whether that be a design function, a data function, a product management function, a product design, whatever the function is. If COVID has taught us nothing, it's that we have to be able to adapt to that kind of change. And as we catalyze that change and as we agitate for it, hopefully leadership are able to see that and go with it, or actually drive it from the top as well.
Nice. The one thing, sorry.
No, go.
The one thing I would add to this conversation is that as much as change is great, communication is really important. Yeah. How change is communicated, we have to tell the story. We have to say what the problem is. We have to come with data, and we have to make sure that things are really transparent so that you have everyone jumping on board on the change, because everyone can see the sense behind, moving in a different direction. But if change is communicated in a, hey, we're doing this today and tomorrow we're doing something else because I woke up and I felt, then no one is going to get behind such. So I would say, yes, change mindset, but yes, communicating with data and with a lot of openness and transparency is absolutely vital.
I love that. And I like where this conversation is going, because we've seen a lot of change, especially during this time. It's just happened. It was, again, inevitable, unexpected. No one planned for it. When we're doing our Q1 planning last year, we did not expect to have this in part of the plan. So we had to change our plans. And part of that, like you said, is communication. But then that's the process of change management, right? But another thing that is inclusive of change management is upskilling, because change comes with growth. Change comes with the need for people to be able to adapt to that change. And that means either picking up a new skill or picking up a new experience. And I'd like to hear from Rowena, especially changing roles. I mean, like, you've been in Microsoft for 2 months now, being able to change roles. I'm sure there's been some requirements of you, right? Being able to gain new experiences so that you can be able to get into that space. Could you please share with us what skills and experiences you've gained during this time, and how you managed to do that? How did you make time for that, and where did you look for this growth and this experience and learning?
Well, I think to some extent, also just coming from a startup background, there has to, just weighing in on the previous conversation, there has to be a level of proactiveness with actually looking for the heartbeats that an organization needs to prompt change. I am a strong believer that we don't need a pandemic to highlight the gaps in culture, the gaps in communication, the gaps in goal setting, the gaps in change management over time. We don't need a monumentous thing like a pandemic to do this. So I think on a leadership level, or even on a team level, having gaps within the roadmap that actually just allow a level of introspection, or actually putting in place as we develop our product heartbeats that actually are very measurable in terms of giving us insight on whether or not we're doing something right, and not waiting for something to break or something to change before we're able to start the change process, I think is very important, because it really abstracts you from having to get on the drawing board and rework solutions and start to rethink things from scratch, because from the beginning the process was intentionally built with heartbeats to be able to allow us to know whether we're progressing in the right direction. So, and I think those heartbeats will also be, in a very scientific way, what will inform how communication on change or how communication on goals changing will look like. It doesn't have to be winging it. We don't need to bring like a leadership coach to teach leaders how to communicate. There could be scientific due diligence and like processes in the middle of the development cycle that actually allow us to go in a more targeted way and do it in a more impactful way. And also not having to consistently reiterate, because sometimes we try to lean on reiteration as as startups we have to rapidly reiterate, right? We do, but sometimes reiteration should not be our excuse to not give the process due diligence and not to do things right the first time, right? Fail fast, but do, if you have to fail, then do what you had to do to push the product to success. And I think a part of my transition had been to find an organization that shared those principles and those philosophies, the principles and philosophies on being deliberate with the product cycle and being deliberate with the roles and being deliberate with the role that I'm in now. And I think that has been a huge benefit of the organization that I've joined now. Having people and structures that actually allow you to craft what your journey is going to look like has been extremely beneficial. But on the side of the skills that have come to play that have really helped me with this transition the best, the biggest one of all, I would have to say, has been empathy. Putting yourself in the team's position in terms of what their skill gaps may look like, what gaps in their process may look like, or really where they're actually coming from as individual people has been extremely helpful, because it's very easy as a product leader to just be like, okay, here are requirements, this is the direction, execute, and then try to box in what the challenges or the roadblocks to achieving that goal would look like. And empathy allows you to unlock another perspective of really understanding. It's not merely going to be related to we don't have sufficient resources or we didn't size or scope well enough. During this whole pandemic situation, it's been very evident that there are a lot of people aspects, there are a lot of mental health aspects that actually play really huge roles into how our development cycles develop. And how are we as product leaders adapting to finding these insights on how the people level, the individual management of our resources plays a role in the long-term development of our products, right? So having that in mind, looking at the planning that we're doing for the next semester, we have had a lot of leeway to allow us to do personal development or to really have gaps within our planning process to allow us to learn from the cycles that we've been through and impact change within that process. So that's been extremely helpful, because I think I joined at a time where our leadership in Microsoft was really paying attention to that. And that's trickled down into our individual roles as product leaders. And so unlocking the ability to use that time to get impactful insight on how to better manage your team has been extremely great for me in onboarding. And I think also the first thing that my new manager told me to do was spend 2 or 3 weeks building relationships, and don't come into the product thinking about how to plug into the product and how to provide your insight into the product. Come in with the building relationships angle, see how people work, see how you would plug into their process on a level of what can my role do to empower you to better achieve your role, and then go with that, because that has been the best way to onboard, because people love talking about the work they do, people love to be listened to, and I think that's just a really great skill if you're onboarding to a new role as a PM. to have just come in with that angle of curiosity on how their cycles look like, what challenges they face, and then get all the information before you can start to plug in on aligning with top level goals or the business goals moving forward. So that's been extremely helpful for me during the onboarding process. I think you're still muted, June.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I think it happens quite often. So I was just saying, I love what you said about, not using COVID as an excuse for innovation. We should always innovate and innovate always. And that rapid iterations shouldn't be an excuse to, mediocrity work. We should always do good work at the beginning, and allow ourselves to fail, but also don't use it as an excuse to hold yourself back from building amazing products. I really, really like that. And I think that's one takeaway from me in this session. We are almost wrapping up, and I want to make sure that there's the one question that I want to make sure I ask all of you, and it's a sentence that I'd like for you to complete. And the sentence goes, I am remarkable because. So you will complete the sentence. For example, I will say, I am remarkable because I have been able to see myself grow through this year and work in a product team and elevate my skills, and allow myself to push myself even when I didn't feel like I needed to. So that's why I'm remarkable. So over to you, Kagonya. Why are you remarkable?
Great. Yeah, thanks for that. So before I answer that, I saw a couple of questions, one from Bog. I hope I've not mispronounced your name. I'll not answer it in entirety, but I believe we have talked about, many of us in the panel have talked about how user involvement and user research fits into the innovation process. I was just trying to ensure we've not missed out any questions from the audience, because I know that can be quite something. But and from Margaret, it was about Safaricom is evolving to a tech company. So yes, so I am remarkable because I'm considerate. I'm actually, I discovered, and this is something I'm proud of saying, I'm actually a very caring person. And the funny thing is that my name Kagonya means the caring one. It's a very loose translation. In a very loose translation, it means the caring one. So recent past events have made me understand that I am living out that my name, which is tremendous. So yeah, I'm caring because I am caring. I'm remarkable because I'm caring. Jeez, what am I saying? Yeah.
I love it. Awesome. Maureen, how about you? I am remarkable because.
I had said at the top, at the like pre-call thingy, that I would say I'm remarkable because I know Kagonya. So can I stick with that?
It's not gonna cut it with me.
Damn. Okay, so I think I am remarkable because I have scars, which are lessons learned in terms of leadership and running a company. And I am made remarkable every day because I am surrounded by a great team of people that care about us as a company, that care about the work that we do, and people that want to support us on our journey to getting to the next level.
Thank you, Maureen. Carol, I am remarkable because.
I am remarkable because I have a growth mindset, which has really helped me navigate so many challenges and learn new skills and be able to just serve others where I'm able to. So I think that's one of my main skills, and I'm very adaptable also. So put me in a setup or a situation, I'll be able to figure my way out and just like come up with the results.
Amazing. Awesome. Wangeshi, I am remarkable because.
I am remarkable because I have learned to become one with myself and to be able to bring my full self every day and in everything that I touch. No fear, no stopping myself, no living in my head.
That's nice.
Lorena, over to you. I am remarkable because.
I am remarkable because I am curious. I feel like that makes me be able to adapt to very many different situations. Like I strongly believe that if I decided to become a carpenter or an artist or a scuba diver, I would be able to do it because I'm curious.
I love it. And I think all of you are remarkable for everything that you've shared with us today. There's been a lot of amazing insights. And before we end it, I'd like to answer the questions from, excuse me, from the panel. No, sorry, from the audience. Are there any questions you'd like to ask? But I'll throw this out there. Kagonya, you answered this, but I'll just, if there are any more additions to this. Borg asked, is it Borg? Sorry, I hope I'm not butchering your name, but he asked, several of you have mentioned usability testing and customer journeys. How does user involvement and user research fit into the innovation process, in your opinions? I guess one of you can come up and answer this question. Anyone would like to pick this up? Okay, I'll repeat the question. Several of you have mentioned usability testing and customer journeys. How does user involvement and user research fit into the innovation process, in your opinions?
I think for me, the short answer is, if you're innovating without an understanding of a need, you're probably not innovating in the right direction, right? Innovation for the sake of innovation is not particularly interesting, unfortunately, and oftentimes misses the mark in terms of impact and driving a real agenda of putting out solutions that are actually relevant to our context. And user research helps to close that gap alongside a number of other sources of data. User research helps us to understand people, their context, the challenges that they face, their needs that they have, and then translate that in intelligent ways by finding patterns into concepts, and then translating those into products. And if you think about it, that is a big part of the innovation process.
Amazing. Thank you, Maureen. I hope that answers your question. We have 1 minute left, and I think I'll just go ahead and close the panel discussion. But before that, I'd like to read out a comment that has been made by Zondi, and she said, "Love being tapped into what's happening in the Kenyan tech space. You ladies are all remarkable and doing a great job. Thank you for this great session." And thank you so much for taking the time to come here and share your amazing experiences. And I hope people will tap into your LinkedIn. We'll be able to share that on Kala platforms. And yeah, go forth, be remarkable, build, and be nothing short of amazing. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope to see you guys in our next session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, June. Shout out to you too.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.